Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and yes, we do have shots fired right here. Bruce Fenton, Zuckerberg doing a photo op on a boat with a flag, an American flag, doesn't make him some based American anymore than Jack Dorsey growing a beard and talking about Bitcoin does. Both are massive censors who worked with the feds to censor American citizens from true information. Yes, they did. This is one of the things that drives me crazy, is watching Jack Dorsey. He's the one creating what he says. I think he said this blue sky he's creating, this is going to be some censorship-free social media. He was the one that helped Twitter at the time censor all. He was working with the three-letter agencies to censor Americans, and I remember when they were doing it. Facebook was too, and they weren't the only ones. Other social media platforms are more guilty even than they are. But yeah, these guys are the pinnacle of censorship, and Ryan Selkis called them out too. Check this out. This is from Kitco. Andy Scheckman, who is one of my sponsors from Miles, he's milesfranklin.com. You can get your gold, and you can use code DAI gold for the best deal. Check it out.
The golden rule, Andy, he who has the gold makes the rules, right? Now, you mentioned that 2019 change in the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, the central bank of central banks, when they made gold a tier 1 asset. Explain the significance of that, because that was one of the first points that I think really started to trigger this process in your mind that this de-dollarization trend is really going to accelerate.
Yeah, well, since World War II, there's been one tier 1 asset by central bank standards, U.S. treasuries and dollars. And in 2017, when we saw the Bundesbank lead the charge to repatriate their gold from the New York Fed, slowly thereafter, the Bank of Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, the Czech National Bank, the Dutch National Bank, they all said, give us our gold back from the Bank of England and the New York Fed, and then quietly went on a buying spree where in 2018, the following year, those same banks bought more gold as a group than they did in the 60 years previously combined. Those numbers have continued to increase ever since, but in 2019, the BIS said, oh, by the way, gold is now tier 1, and that's a huge deal when you put all of this together. And look where we are right now. Countries are continuing to do the same thing. In fact, what we saw, what did we see? The Bank of India, who just bought 1.5 times the amount of gold they bought all of last year, just in the first 4 months of this year, but they repatriated their gold. They brought it back from the Bank of India to the point where much of their gold is, or from the Bank of England rather, much of their gold has been sitting there since 1991. They now hold almost all of their gold. But this is not something that is immune just to India here or centered just on India. We've seen Saudi Arabia and Egypt and 6 African countries just bring all of their gold back from the New York Fed. So not only is gold a tier 1 asset, a riskless asset, if it's a riskless asset, you want to have remove counterparty liability. So these countries who understand that it can replace the dollar or the bond market, rather, the treasury in terms of its status as a reserve and being recognized by the BIS, they are also removing counterparty risk.
Okay. And then right here, Jim Rickards weighs in on the greatest enemy of the U.S. dollar.
Oh, I've said the greatest enemy of the dollar is not Russia or China. It's the United States Treasury and the Fed. They take it for granted. They overuse the sanctions. They try to use it as a bludgeon. And all that does, it forces people to walk away from the table. It's like, hey, I've had enough, there's enough sanctions, enough insults. Get me a new currency. So So that is the process by which the BRICS currency will gradually, not overnight, but gradually displace the U.S. dollar as a trading currency, but not all at once. But you're asking a deeper question, which is, does there come a time when the dollar loses its status as a reserve currency? You don't even want U.S. treasuries because you don't trust the U.S. Treasury, either because they're seizing assets or they're going to go to hyperinflation. The seizing asset part is happening now. That happened at the G7 summit in Napoli, Italy on June 13th, when they agreed to basically steal the interest on the frozen Russian assets and use it to pay principal and interest on a $50 billion bond issue guaranteed by the United States of America, and they're going to give the money to Ukraine.
Okay. We haven't checked in with in my opinion, it's really a close tie for the biggest Looney Tune Bitcoin maxi between Max Kaiser and Michael Saylor. I don't know. It's a close one. But we haven't checked in with this Looney Tune in a while.
This fiat money chase is an endless hamster wheel of an emotional roller coaster that is everything is forcing you to think like you need to keep going chasing this tail of the fiat money world. But once you get into Bitcoin, pretty quickly you start to realize it's unconfiscatable, it's inflation proof, it's mine, no one else can take it from me, and the purchasing power is going to go up forever. And I can listen, and Michael Saylor works for me. Larry Fink works for me. Like, those are my employees. When you turn on CNBC and Larry Fink's there talking about how great Bitcoin is. And 2 years ago, he thought it was shit. Now he's like, oh, I believe in it. You're like, thank you, Larry. You know, I'm up another 10%. Thanks to you, Larry. You're doing a good job, Larry. No, go.
I thought it was down with the banks. Now, meanwhile, the banks, he's all excited about the banks accumulating Bitcoins so they can ultimately control it.
Your shine box, Larry. That's right, Larry. You know, all these people are now working for you, and they're all coming. You know, they're all coming to be your employee. Yeah. So I love Michael Saylor. Why? He fucking is making me money. That's why.
Man, I have a feeling that guy is the ending of that story is not going to end well. Now, Black Swan Capital has put out an interesting video here. Watch this about liquidity driving the markets.
If that deteriorates, the collateral base shrinks, liquidity plunges, and markets drop. That's the big risk.
More importantly, I think, is how liquidity, and today, as many in the fintech community know, banks pre-fund accounts. There's almost $10 trillion parked as pre-funded accounts around the world, such that banks can then debit and credit and make those cross-border flows work. We have a product that allows banks, allows financial institutions, payment providers to not pre-fund, thus making that trillions of dollars more active. And we think by doing this, we really do accelerate the global engine of commerce.
Yeah, I'm excited to announce that, this morning, 9 a.m., we announced our newest product called Liquidity Hub. And in 2018, we started sourcing liquidity for moving cross-border payments from crypto exchanges. How many crypto developers do we really know out there that know how to securely source liquidity?
And how to use XRP as on-demand liquidity.
The only reason why you're here first is because you don't want to get slapped with regulations.
Wait a minute, we might have a movie there that I don't want copyright issues. Yeah. We want to get past this. No, actually, we can't get past it. I'm not going to be able to show you that part of that. I don't want to get copyright hit, but we can go over this. The SEC sued Amazon in the late 1990s, Facebook in 2012, Tesla in 2018. We all know what happened to those companies after the cases were over. Ripple up next. And then this is a smoke tweet. When the SEC case is settled with Ripple, central banks and other financial institutions will get the seal of approval to start using XRP through the XRP ledger, similarly to how the SEC sued Tesla. And I don't know what this is from, but I'll read it anyway. When this case is settled, this will give the seal of approval to central banks and other financial institutions to start using XRP through the XRP ledger, less speculative than, for example, Tesla randomly deciding to purchase a large amount of Bitcoins. Ironically, the SEC is suing Elon Musk for securities fraud. And I don't remember if I covered this. I don't think I did, but Stuart Alderati had tweeted this the other day. Thanks to Point Zero Forum for organizing this great panel in Zurich this past week. As I explained, good regulation, when consistently applied, leads to predictable results. Unfortunately, the U.S. fails that test miserably compared to its global counterparts. Now, in DAIXRP.com, we're gonna talk about some 3-letter agencies, and we're going to talk about right now. Many of you are kind of like I am. You don't believe hardly anything that you see in the media, because we know we've been lied to in a million different ways by the propaganda media. We've been lied to by the politicians, the bureaucrats, and all of their propaganda media outlets for many years about many things. Many of the things that they called conspiracies are no longer conspiracies. We're going to talk about one of the biggest ones. This is one I had not heard until recently. And I'm going to show you this one. This one, when you watch it, it really makes sense knowing who some of the characters are. But we literally face, in our country, we face, I believe, many of our citizens are going to have to come face to face with some uncomfortable truths that they didn't think they would see in a million years. Things that we were all lied to for a long time. And one of the big ones I'm about to show you. I don't think I've talked about this one before. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Here we go.